Greetings, everyone. I am Pete Pardo from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to Pick and Day number 9 of my 31 favorite blind buy albums of all time. That's right. These are the albums where we went into a record store, went to a CD shop, went to a flea market, yard sale, thrift store, maybe online. You saw that album cover. Actually, the online thing probably doesn't hold for this, because if you saw something really cool online, you're probably like, oh, that looks really cool. Let me go listen to it somewhere, right? Let me go to Spotify, or let me go to YouTube or Apple Music or wherever. So really it sort of doesn't really count, but it could be something more modern times. You went somewhere and you saw an album. You didn't go and try and check it out. You just said, I like that. That looks really cool. Not quite sure who the band or artist is, or maybe I've heard of them, but never listened to them. I'm just going to buy it because that album cover is so damn cool, right? Back in the day, we did this all the time. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have all these tools that we have nowadays to go and listen to things before we bought something. We had to take a chance, right? Maybe there were certain instances where we heard a song or two on the radio, or we had a friend who had the album or one of the albums, so we had a chance to experiment a little bit beforehand. Most of the time, we went to a record shop. We saw something that looked really cool. We loved the logo. We loved the album cover. Loved the band name. It was in the metal section. It was in the rock section. It was in the classical section, jazz section, or whatever. We were kind of like, all right, that looks really cool. I like that style of music. I'm going to bring it home. And then you brought it home, and you were pleasantly surprised. Maybe even fell in love with the album, right? So lots of instances with me, especially growing up, because that's what I did all the time. So for today's pick, this is an album that was released in September 1979, recorded at BJ Recording Studios in Orlando, Florida, as well as some stuff done at the record plant in Los Angeles, California. Produced by Tom Wehrman and Pat Armstrong for Epic Records. This is the second studio album from the band known as Molly Hatchet. Flirtin' with Disaster is the album. Yes, indeed. So I remember this day very, very clearly. I was in that famous place that I've talked about so many times called Record World in Middletown, New York, in the Orange Plaza Mall in Middletown, New York, in the basement. They call it the basement in Orange Plaza, right? So we had this big, well, it wasn't huge, but back in the day it was one of the bigger malls around. Regular, one level mall, but they had a basement. You took an escalator downstairs and you had Record World, you had the China Express, which was like at the time kind of an unheard of thing, where you went to a Chinese restaurant and they had like the buffet and you would tell them what you want. They put it on a plate. You'd sit down and eat, right? It was kind of a new thing at the time. Right now we have China buffets where you go serve yourself. Back then it was like a lunch line type of thing. And there were like maybe 2 other stores. I don't even remember the other stores, but it was like kind of like a big underground area, but there was very little down there at the time. But anyway, so Record World was situated down there. And I remember going down there and going through the racks and I think this was a new release at the time, and I remember seeing it on an end cap, and I was, Frank Frazetta, ladies and gentlemen, right? So as a kid in what did I say? This was 1979, so I'm 13 years old. I am well familiar with the Frank Frazetta artwork, right? I was, buying those Tarzan little paperback books, the John Carter, Warlord of Mars stuff. Frank Frazetta adorned a lot of that stuff, right? I was reading Famous Monsters magazine. I was familiar with Eerie and Creepy magazine, right? That being a comic book kid. So the artwork of Frank Frazetta was known to me. And I saw this kind of like, almost like Viking warrior on this, who the hell is Molly Hatchet, right? No idea. And then you had the picture on the back, kind of like some cool looking rocker dudes. They're dressed pretty well, right? They're kind of looking the parts. Like they got this kind of like Leonard Skinner thing going on here. Didn't know whether they were Southern rock or metal or hard rock. I had no idea. But I went and brought this home because I had to have it. And I was like, whoa, this is kind of not what I expected, but this is pretty good. And before you know it, like Flirtin' with Disaster, the title track is being played all over the radio. And I'm pretty excited that I actually had already bought the album for this single that's now playing on 101.5 WPDH, Poughkeepsie, New York. That was our local rock radio station, right? And a lot of great stuff on here. Whiskey Man, terrific track. Jukin' City, One Man's Pleasure. Title track, of course, is great. Gunsmoke. It's all over now. 3 guitarists. I was kind of like, wow, because this is, my growing period of really starting to love guitar music, and guitar players. So I'm like looking at the back and looking at the credits. I'm like, okay, we got this guy, Danny Joe Brown on vocals, who's got a totally unique voice. Dave Lubeck, Steve Holland, Dwayne Rollin, 3 guitar players? Really? There are bands with 3 guitar players? But then also thinking, it's like, wow, an album with 3 guitar players, the album is not all that heavy. It's pretty rocking, but it's not all that heavy. Banner Thomas, bass guitar, Bruce Crump on drums. But just totally digging this. And then I found out they had another album with another Frank Frazetta artwork drawn cover. And, of course, I went and got that within short time. And then before you knew it, go ahead, like a year and a half, something like that, we got another album. That Beating the Odds album, right? Love that cover as well. Oh, wait a second. There's a different singer on this album. What happened to Danny Joe Brown? Who's this big guy? Right? That was kind of my start with Molly Hatchet, and my real first stab into Southern rock was with Molly Hatchet. I really fell in love with this band. I went to see them live. Anybody remember DC Star? I saw them at the Minnesota Civic Center. Molly Hatchet with DC Star opening up. I actually saw DC Star a couple times, but they were kind of like a big band in this area that came around a lot in the early '80s, right? And then they kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. But Molly Hatchet was really my first band that I started getting into, like on the Southern rock genre. I remember I bought. Maybe I'll save it for another day. But I got another album, a live album by another band shortly thereafter this. I didn't actually start seriously listening to Skinner till a couple of years after I started getting into Hatchet and a few of the other Southern rock bands. But to me, I saw this and it's like, that's got to be a metal band, right? Here I am listening to all this heavy stuff, and it's actually not all that heavy, but it's still really, really good. That was my blind buy. That's my pick for today. Molly Hatchet, there was no way a 13-year-old kid like me was going to pass this up as soon as I saw it. There was just no way. And then I saw the debut, and I'm like, I have to have that too, because they kind of go together. And then the third one, woo, so good. So let us know what you think of Flirt with Disaster down in the comments below. Did any of you buy this blind back in the day before you heard anything? Before you heard Flirt with Disaster, the title track on the radio? Did you buy this based on the cover? I know some of you did. You had to, right? So many of us did. So thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also, down below, get the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, our merch page, our Cameo page, and the Sea of Tranquility membership options. They're all down there in the video description. Thanks for all your support, folks. It's greatly appreciated. And we'll see you soon here with more stuff. I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching. More coming tomorrow. Got another one for you tomorrow. Lots of things happening too for the rest of the week, so stay tuned for everything, and we'll see you then. I'm Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.